Remember when you graduated high school? It seemed like a long time ago. I think for some time it's like a long time. Others it wasn't that far, but you get the idea. So we've got a couple of graduates today. Ethan Markland, raise your hand up there, Ethan, if you would. And then Davis Whitney. You don't see Davis here today. But they've been connected with our church for the past several years. I remember Ethan and I playing Madden football in Kid Zone. Probably, 9 years ago now?
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a long time. So, it's really funny to see that he's actually graduated from high school now. Happy for him. So we certainly pray for the kids that our ministry touches, and can't help but think that God brings in our direction a lot of young people. And I think it's something that we need to be aware of, something that we need to be prayerful about, and something that we need to recognize that goes on in our community, that God brings folks like that into our orbit. Thomas Klein will be coming up shortly to be speaking more to that specifically. But at this time, we wanted to also give a recognition for our FG Lane recipient for this particular year. And so I'm going to give that to Quentin Helmack.
He's not in here.
You can turn the mic up. There you go.
Testing.
This will be a test for you.
So I want to talk about the young man first. We almost lost him last year. And through the grace of God, he's back, he's healthy, and he changed the course of his life and decided to go to school and continue his education and become a teacher. This year, the FG Lane Scholarship Award is going to be awarded to Cole Massey. And the scholarship award of $702.80 will be credited toward Cole Massey's continuing education being pursued at Western Governors University toward the 21-22 academic year. Cole Massey has satisfied the FG Lane scholarship criteria, gained the confidence and character recommendation from outside references, a letter of recommendation from a collegiate administrator, and the unanimous approval of the First Baptist Church Board of Deacons. The FG Lane Scholarship Fund was established in order that it might help a deserving young person as they think in terms of working and helping to promote the work of Christ throughout the world. Cole Massey's stated goal is working toward his bachelor degree in secondary education and obtaining his teaching license that would enable him to teach biology at the high school level. Today we recognize Cole Massey's educational pursuit and provide him a scholarship reward that will help him along this road that God has directed him. Cole?
Well, good morning. I am Thomas Klein, the youth pastor here, and it is my privilege this morning to recognize our graduates. We have actually a number of the high school graduates this year that if you walk down through the list, throughout the years, at some point have been connected with our church and our church ministries, whether that be Kids Zone, or having gone to Bible Club, or having come to youth group for a while. And of course, we congratulate all of those. And I would encourage you as you recognize those students and their names and perhaps see them in the coming weeks to congratulate them on that accomplishment. But this morning we wanted to focus particularly on a couple of graduates who have stuck with and been a regular part of our church and our church ministries. So we have Ethan Markland and Davis Whitney, who had something come up and was not able to make it here this morning, so I'll embarrass him later. But Ethan's going to be our primary he's going to be my sole embarrassment this morning, so that's okay, he can take it. Also would note that Brooke Merritt has graduated with her bachelor's degree from BSU. Recognize her as well. She's headed on to NNU to pursue her master's degree. So would make note of that as well. And pretty soon we'll get to congratulate Cole as he's pursuing that direction with his college education. But this morning, as I wanted to focus on our graduates and congratulate them, I'm going to talk primarily to Ethan. This message is for you, but it is applicable to the rest of us as well. These life principles that I'm going to encourage Ethan with this morning, these are very much the same principles all of us need to live by. Now, of course, Ethan is at a particular point in life where this becomes relevant. As you are stepping out on your own, you're going to be responsible to make your own life choices here. Mom and Dad are not going to be there watching over you. And you get to pursue the directions for life that are afforded to you in different opportunities. You have choices to make. It's a big step, it's a big change, but it's also a good thing. Now, as much as Mom may not quite be ready to let you leave on one hand, and on the other, might be happy to kick you out of the house too. And as much as on one hand you're excited to go out in life and to pursue your directions and to do life on your own. And that's a good thing. And then there's part of you that, well, it's really nice not to have to buy your own groceries. This is a good thing. This is exactly the point in life that you are created to reach. From the moment that you were brought into this world as a child, you were not intended to stay a little child, but rather to mature, to grow up, to step out into life as an adult, and then to pursue the direction that God has for you as an individual. And so as you do that, my one encouragement that I'm going to give you this morning is that wherever you would go, wherever life is going to take you, whatever direction that materializes in, that you would pursue building a name worth remembering. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let me show you here. I'm going to put a couple of names up here on the screen here in just a moment. And as I do that, I want you to look and see what names you recognize or not. Okay. But, okay, I'll come back to pictures later. I forgot to put these up so you can enjoy. Really fast, we'll come back. All right. I'm going to plug a couple of names up here on the screen. As I walk through these names, if you recognize a name, I want you to raise your hand. Now, these are biblical names, just so you know. Okay, so we're not looking for your great Uncle Gadiel.
Yes.
But if you recognize this name, raise your hand. Okay, we're going to know that there's some names worth remembering. So we got Shanoah, Shaphat, Caleb, Egal, Hoshea or Joshua, Palti, Gadiel, Gadi, Amiel, Sether, Nabi, Guel. Some great baby names there, don't you think? Okay, 12 names, and by my count, we recognized 2 of those. All right? Do we come 3? Okay, so somebody picked out a 3rd one in there. But primarily 2 of these names that several of you recognized, and 10 of them that you did not. Now, some of you may wonder where in the world I got these names out of the Bible, because we don't recognize them. But here's the interesting thing. All 12 of these names occur in the same Bible event. And yet, even though they went through the same event, it's all recorded together there in the Bible, there's 2 of them that we remember, that we recognize and we know of, and 10 of them that you might have never heard of before this morning. Why is that? What makes these 2 names worth remembering? That's where I'm going to take you this morning. So to draw that out, let's go to Numbers chapter 13. Numbers chapter 13 in your Bibles. This is where we're going to find this event that these 12 individuals find themselves in. And as you're turning your way over there, let me give you a little bit of context of where this is occurring at. So Numbers chapter 13, this is as Israel was called out of Egypt from slavery, God sent Moses to go and bring them out. They went through the 10 plagues with Pharaoh. He finally agrees to let them go. They've gone out, crossed the Red Sea, had that part for them. They went to Mount Sinai. They've spent a number of months at Mount Sinai with God giving them the 10 Commandments, the instructions for the tabernacle, and creating this covenant of promise with them, teaching them what it means, again, to be His people. And then finally, it has reached the time where God is leading them out of the desert, past Mount Sinai, to come to this land of Canaan, which was their whole destination all along. This was the land that God promised Abraham way back before they ended up in slavery, and said, this is where your descendants, my nation of chosen people that I'm building through you, this is where you're going to live and possess forever. Well, of course, they take the sidetrack in Egypt, and now Moses is the one that's bringing them back to fulfill this promise. So this is where they're going. And they have arrived on the edge of this land of Canaan. And that's where we're going to pick up here in Numbers chapter 13 and verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the people of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers you shall send a man, every one a chief among them. Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran, according to the command of the Lord, all of them men who were heads of the people of Israel. And these were their names: from the tribe of Reuben, Shemua, the son of Zakur; from the tribe of Simeon, Shaphat, the son of Hori; from the tribe of Judah, Caleb, the son of Jephunneh; from the tribe of Issachar, Egal, the son of Joseph; from the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea, the son of Nun; from the tribe of Benjamin, Palti, the son of Raphu; and from the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel, the son of Sadi; from the tribe of Joseph, that is, from the tribe of Manasseh, Gadi, the son of Susi; and from the tribe of Dan, Amiel, the son of Gemali; from the tribe of Asher, Sethur, the son of Michael; from the tribe of Naphtali, Nabi, the son of Bashvi, from the tribe of Gad, Guel, the son of Maki. And these were the names of the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land. And Moses called Hoshea, the son of Nun, Joshua. So, as they approach this land, Moses is going to be a wise leader, and God is going to direct him to send these men to go check out the land. So they've got some idea what they're walking into as they're following God, as well as to confirm whether, in fact, this land is as God had promised them and told them it was. Because they have grand promises of what this is. God told them that He's taking them out of Egypt to a land that He describes as flowing with milk and honey. But for the last 400 and some years, no one among them has set foot in this land of Canaan. This is completely unknown to them. To give you a little bit of perspective of 450 years, so they have been out of the land of Canaan for about twice as long as the United States has been a country. So try and put this in that kind of history. They have no clue what this is like. Abraham is so far removed that they have no idea who he is or his journey with God. And now this is supposed to be their homeland, but what is it? Furthermore, what has happened since then? All their descriptions of what the land was like when Abraham was there, that's totally outdated. The people have grown just as the Israelites grew from people of 70 into probably millions. So have the nations of other people who lived in this land. So they're going to get an idea of what is going on, what is really there, what has happened. And they choose these 12 people who represent the 12 tribes and send them in to investigate. So it goes on in verse 17 then. Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, and he said to them, go up into the Negeb and into the hill country, and see what the land is, and whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, whether they are few or many, and whether the land that they dwell in is good or bad, whether the cities that they dwell in are camps or strongholds, and whether the land is rich or poor, whether there are trees in it or not. Be of good courage and bring some of the fruit of the land. And now the time of the season was the first ripe grapes. So they went up, and they spied out the land, from the wilderness of Zin to Rehob, near Lebo-Hamath. And they came up into the Geb, and came to Hebron, Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, and the descendants of Anak were there. Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. And they came to the valley of Eshcol, and they cut down from there a branch with a single cluster of grapes, and they carried it on a pole between the two of them. They also brought some pomegranates and figs, and that place was called the Valley of Eshcol because of the cluster that the people of Israel had cut down from there. At the end of 40 days, they returned from spying out the land. And they came to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation of the people of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. And they brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. So they've come back, and now they're going to give their reports. And this is where things start to get interesting. They told him, "We came to the land which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the Negev. The Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the hill country. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea along the Jordan." But Caleb quieted the people before Moses, and he said, "Let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are all well able to overcome it." But then the men who had gone up with him said, "We are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are." And they brought to the people of Israel a bad report of the land that they had spied out, saying, "The land that we have gone to spy out is a land that devours its inhabitants, and its people that we saw in it are of great height. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them." So this is the conclusion that they bring back after they have spied out this land. So in part, they've gone into the land and they've noted, you know what, this is indeed a good land. It's rich, it's fertile, it's well watered. Description of flowing with milk and honey is a good one. It's a good place to raise livestock, to grow some cows, get some milk. That's good. The fruit is plentiful there, and so the bees are making honey. It's good. We like this. The produce, man, this is pretty good. I mean, you think about a vine of grapes that is big, that grows a cluster big enough that you've got to have 2 full-grown men pack this around. You're not finding that in Minco. That is a big hunk of grapes. The amount of fertility to the soil to try and grow this. I mean, this, everything that they're bringing back here, this is really quite good. This is everything that they've imagined along the way, and probably more so. It is rich just as God has promised. But they also bring back a few other details along with this. They begin to tell of some of the cities that they visit that are fortified, defended by armies. And you think about, we jump ahead in the story a little bit and you get to where Joshua is leading the people in, and they come to Jericho, and this is where they walk around and the walls fall down. Some of the descriptions of Jericho, I mean, the wall on this thing is big enough that people are living in it. And it's massive, it's strong. The people of Israel, as they're coming to approach this, they really don't have any means to deal with this. So this was kind of a problem for that. They also noted that as they were going some of these places, they discovered the descendants of Anak there. These are, well, they describe them as giants. If you follow through your Bible, go back to Genesis chapter 6, they're briefly mentioned there that there's giants in the land. It's Nephilim, descendants of Anak. Better known to us, go to David and Goliath. Okay, Goliath, big 9-foot tall guy, this is the giant. Well, Goliath is a descendant of Anak. See, farther ahead in the story, when the Israelites actually invade the land, take over, well, there's a few of these descendants, a few of these families that survive. And eventually, that line is where Goliath comes from. And so, up there in 1 Samuel, you've got one giant that's got the entire army of Israel terrified. They got to send the shepherd boy out to fight him. Imagine an entire army of giants. Imagine a whole city of them. And who knows if Goliath wasn't to run to the giants and 9 feet tall. So when they're coming and they're describing them, we felt like grasshoppers in their sight. They're really not exaggerating all that much. They came up to about his knees. This is a bit terrifying. This just might be a little bit of a problem for them. And this is what is going through their minds. This is the report that they bring back. But what I want you to pay very careful attention to here is that in this report, there are the same facts given. All 12 of them report the same realities of the land that they went to check out. But 10 of them, their conclusion is there is absolutely no way that we can go up into this land and do as God has told us and conquer it and take it over. There is no way that we can face these people. They will defeat us. And this land, it will eat us up, it will devour us and spit us back out. But 2 of them, Joshua and Caleb, say, oh no, absolutely, we can do this. Pack your bags, let's go. They're ready to go up. What a difference. And in these 2 perspectives, understand that nobody missed any of the parts that the other one saw. See, as they are walking through this land and they're looking, it's wonderful. They see the fields, they see the crops, they see that it has great space for them to inhabit. They see the cows, they're good and healthy, the milk is flowing, this is great. They're packing the grapes. As they're giving this report of, is this land what God promised? They're holding the thing right here in the middle. It's got to take 2 of them. The whole giant grape thing is hanging here down to the ground. There's no question that this is as good as God had promised them, if not better than what he described. They all saw that. The 10 don't deny how desirable this land would be for them to inhabit. Nor do Joshua and Caleb deny the reality of what they're facing. They know very well what it means to come up against this city with fortified walls. Somehow, some way, Joshua has essentially become the de facto general, but not because he's really any more experienced than anybody else. They're slaves for the last 400 years. None of them know how to go to battle. Because you don't train slaves how to be soldiers unless you're stupid. So they have no military experience to start with. Their weaponry is probably limited to what few things they could collect, what was given to them on their way out of Egypt, or what they managed to collect as it washes up on the edge of the Red Sea. So they're probably not all that well armed either. And they certainly, making their way through the desert, do not have machines of war. Ladders, catapults, trebuchets, things that they're going to use to break through these walls. And yeah, they've got some numbers, but so does the enemy. And their armies are probably well equipped and well trained. Not only that, even if they're not, some of them are really big. They've got some big dudes here. One of them can probably take on 100 of us and win. And they're well trained, well armed. As they come up to this, the reality of the obstacles between them and the grapes, the obstacles between the Israelites and the land flowing with milk and honey, are very, very real and very, very significant. To the point that, in fact, it is quite a correct assessment for them to come to the conclusion that this is impossible. By all realistic measuring of what we've got versus what they've got, the size of their army versus our army, our experience, their experience, they got really big walls, we got nothing to break them down with. This is not going to happen. By all expectation, they should expect to be defeated if they go in. And yet, 2 of them reach a very different conclusion. Why is that? Because Joshua and Caleb, as they look at this situation, situation. They do not deny the difficulty of the obstacles. Now this is where the other 10 have gotten stuck. Because they see the obstacles, they do not see any reasonable way to get around them, and so we're done. Can't do it. Turn around and go home. Why does Caleb say, no, we can do this? His words, in fact, are this. Here it is, verse 30, sorry. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses, and he said, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. Well, Joshua gives a little bit more detail. If we drop down into chapter 14, Joshua again tries to convince the people. And what he says here, in verse 7, he said, all the congregation of the people of Israel, the land which we passed through to spy it out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land that flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not fear the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their protection is removed from them, and the Lord is with us, so do not fear them. See, what are Caleb and Joshua looking at? It is the reality of why they are there and what they have come to do. It is God who called them out of Egypt. God who brought them to the edge of this land, and God who told them to go in. Why? Because he was going to give them this land. And so what they are looking at is, yes, this is impossible, but you know what? So was Egypt. You want to talk about militaries and armies? At that point in time, Egypt is the empire Egypt is the most prestigious empire at that time. Their army is the army to beat. Their military weaponry is the weapons that are most advanced. Egypt could have come in and invaded Canaan and very likely successfully annihilated it and taken it over had they wanted to. Joshua and Caleb were like, well, we already beat the Egyptians and we didn't even have to fight them. So, were the Canaanites really that much different? Impossible situations. Let's see, we've already been back down into a canyon against a sea, the Red Sea, with an army coming in behind us, and watched God part it, and us walk out of an impossible situation on dry land. We have already seen God himself step down on a mountain and speak to us and say that he was choosing us as his people and give us his covenant and his promises. We see a God who does what he promises. And so, yeah, the obstacles are right there, but look at what God has already overcome for us. And if God has promised that this is what he's going to do with us, has he not been faithful up to this point? Did we see any hope of ever leaving Egypt, and yet here we are? If God says he's the one that promises, then guess what? God's the one that has to do it. So, pack your stuff. Let's go. And see, this is the essence of the difference between these two perspectives. 10 of them saw the realities and were captured by the fear. Their perspective was that of fear of the obstacles that they faced. But 2 of them held the perspective that they believed the promise that God had made and that he was faithful to his promises. And most notably, it's not that they were looking at different facts in the situation, but some of them had forgotten the facts of what God had already done with his people. And this is what was missing from their assessment. Well, what happens out of this? They have these two perspectives. There is this debate among the people of what are they going to do. Well, if we look into Numbers chapter 14, verse 1, all the congregation raised a loud cry, and the people wept that night. And all the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron. And the whole congregation said to them, would that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would that we died in this wilderness. Why is it that the Lord is bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will become prey. Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt? And they said to one another, let us choose a leader and go back to Egypt. So by and large, the people as a whole, they listen to what the 10 have to say. And they too are convinced that this is impossible. This is going to be their destruction. Worse than anything else that they've faced along the way. This is going to be their demise. And oh, I wish that we just stayed as slaves back in Egypt. In fact, let's pick a new leader. Let's mutiny against Moses. And let's lead an expedition back to Egypt and offer ourselves as slaves again. Because that would be better. Joshua, he tries to calm the people. He tries to reassure them, and he speaks to them in the passage I read to you just a moment ago, encouraging them to look at the land and its goodness, to see this is exactly as God has promised, and in particular to note that if the Lord delights in us, He will bring us into the land. That the protection of those people is removed, because if God is really God, He's going to do what He wants to accomplish. And He tries to convince them, He tries to get them to listen to this reasoning, but their response is that they pick up stones to stone Joshua to death. In fact, the only thing that stops them is that God shows up in His cloud of glory at the tabernacle to speak to the people. Or when they would have put Joshua to death and made their way back to Egypt. And so God shows up and He intervenes at this moment. Since they will not listen to the reasoning of Caleb or Joshua, then God says, all right, here's what's going to happen. And He speaks to Moses there in the tabernacle, and His response to Moses is, you know what? I'm just going to wipe them all out, and we're going to start over with you. Moses begs on their behalf and pleads and intercedes for the people of Israel. God relents. He has mercy and says, okay, I won't just annihilate them and start over with you. But here's what is going to happen. In chapter 14, down in verse 26, the Lord spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, how long shall this wicked congregation grumble against me? I have heard the grumblings of the people of Israel which they grumble, and say to them, as I live, declares the Lord, what you have said in my hearing I will do to you. Your dead bodies shall fall in this wilderness, and of all your number listed in the census from 20 years old and upward, who have grumbled against me, not one shall come into the land where I swore that I would make you dwell, except Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun. But your little ones, who you said would become a prey, I will bring in, and they shall know the land that you've rejected. But as for you, your dead bodies shall fall in this wilderness, and your children shall be shepherds in the wilderness 40 years, and shall suffer for your faithlessness, until the last of your dead bodies lies in the wilderness. According to the number of the days which you spied out in the land, 40 days, a year for each day, and you shall bear your iniquity 40 years, and you shall know my displeasure. I, the Lord, have spoken. Surely this I will do to all this wicked congregation who are gathered together against me. In this wilderness they shall come to a full end, and there they shall die. As the people of Israel listen to this report, they listen to these two perspectives, and they draw to a conclusion of what they are going to act on. Then God steps in and He enacts the consequences for their choice. So all of the people of Israel who are now ready to head back to Egypt, to abandon God's promise, to abandon God's leaders that He has appointed, He says, all right, you don't believe that I'm going to bring you in, then I won't. And in fact, your consequence is going to be the very thing that you feared is exactly what is going to happen to you. You were afraid that you were going to die, well, guess what? You are going to die. You are going to spend the next 40 years, 1 year for each day that you spent observing the promised land that I told you I would bring you into. And during this time, you have one job. You are to wander around the desert and die. At the end of 40 years, when all of you, 20 years old and above, all you who are the decision-making adults, who have decided not to trust in me, not to follow me in, you won't. You will die in the desert. And then I will take your children into the land. And so what they feared is exactly what they received, because they were not willing to follow God's promises, with the exception of two. Joshua and Caleb are the only two of that generation who will make it. So they too will wander in the desert for the next 40 years, and then they will be the ones to lead the children in. These two, they're at this point the only two grandparent age, and they're leading everybody else in. And as that happens, Joshua has now assumed the leadership role from Moses. He is now the leader of the entire nation. He has developed as a general and as a leader, but as they walk in, he is going to have the opportunity to be used by God to become a great and mighty general, who is going to accomplish many victories, who is going to be the one who actually successfully defeats all of these walled cities, all the giants, all the peoples, and settles the people of Israel into this land of promise. He is going to see that realization. He is going to taste the goodness of that land, and he is going to live to be over 100 years old and see his children and grandchildren enjoy the promise that he believed in. Caleb, likewise, is going to be there by his side, and Caleb is going to become a mighty warrior in his own right. In fact, as they're invading the land and they're taking it over, they reach in the hill country, and in particular, a set of cities that were well defended, well fortified, good armies, and they have all the advantages. They're up on the hill, they're in the rocks. Nobody wants to go up and attack them. And so Caleb, remember, he's the only old guy now. He's like, all right, I'll do it. And at 70 years old, he leads the army up into this city, defeats them, takes the victory, takes possession of the cities, and at 70 years old, God's description of this battle is Caleb's strength was the same as when he was 30. And so he too enjoys the victory. He too receives the benefits of the promise. And he too lives into his hundreds to see his family successfully settled and reaping the benefits, reaping the promises that God had made clear to him and that he trusted in. Now they still had to walk through the difficulties. In fact, they actually had to walk through more difficulty because they had to go back out in the desert and wander around with everybody else that didn't believe. Then they had to come in and they still had to face the walled cities. They still had to go fight the giants. They still had to do the work to obey before they received the promises. But the difference in these perspectives led them to two very different ends. 10 of them received the very thing that they were terrified of and that they were trying to avoid. And 2 of them received the very thing that God had promised. Same facts, same circumstances, same realities, but 2 perspectives of how to approach the situation. 2 perspectives on how to respond to God's promises. Had 2 very different ends. And so the conclusion that leads us to is to recognize that just as the Israelites faced this situation, so too do we face situations in life where we have God's promises and we have to decide what we're going to do with them in life situations. Because life is difficult. Life is going to have many times, Ethan, that you are going to face walls, cities, and giants. And that they are going to stand between you and God's promises for your future and your life. Talk to some of the old people here in this room, and they will tell you the realities of that. And yet, God's promises are given to us as well. God has promised to you that He has plans for you, that He has a life in the future that He has designed, that He has good works He has laid out before even the universe was put into place. He has promised that He will preserve and protect you. He has promised that He will bring us to an eternity through our faith in Christ that does not fade, does not spoil, does not rust away, and that can never be taken from us. And so we too are living life in anticipation, in hope of God's promise, ultimately of heaven, as well as the many promises that He has given to us for this life and His goodness to us in it. But so too are the realities of circumstances. So too are the realities of living in a sin-broken world. And so we will face obstacles. We will face walls that are simply the fact that this world is broken. It no longer obeys God as King and ruler, and so it doesn't work right. Face difficulties of people who are out to stop us, enemies that have their own ambitions, their own directions, and where God is leading you, it's going to be contrary to that. And they will fight you. And then there are the workers of iniquity. Those who have chosen and know very well that they are following Satan. They are opposed to God and His will, and they will hate you and attack you simply because you follow God. And for no other reason. And these are the very real parts of life that we face. But the choice is the same one. Which perspective will we adopt? What will we live by? Will we live by fear of the circumstances, or will we live by faith in the greatness of our God? The difference was that one was fixed upon just how big the giants are. It really is impossible. And so it is impossible for us to ever go through life and survive and succeed and find true joy, success, and happiness as God created us to. Much less to enter heaven. That is the true reality we were created by any means of our own. Our resources are not enough. Our strength is not enough. We are not big enough, strong enough, or tough enough. Will destroy us. Unless there is someone else fighting for us. And that is what Caleb and Joshua saw. They saw this is a God who has all along done exactly what He promised. Look at what He's laid before us. Yes, there are obstacles, but look at the fruit. Look at the cows, look at the grapes. This is what He said. And look at what He's already done. If He was faithful there, why will He not be faithful to us now? It's absolutely impossible for us, but you know what? It's not on us. See, if I am living by God's promises, then it is not a matter of how good I am. It's not a matter of what I have. It's not a matter of how much resource I have to pursue this. It is a matter of how good is my God. Because I don't fulfill God's promises, He does. And so this is the question of the measure of a truly successful life. Is how well will I trust God to fulfill His promises through my obedience to Him? This is the challenge that I'm setting before us, and particularly that I'm setting before you today evening. That as you walk through life, as you are pursuing the directions and the opportunities that God lays before you, you are going to have these choices to make at each opportunity. And which one will you take? Will you build yourself a name worth remembering? Not necessarily because of what you have accomplished or done and accrued, but because of what God accomplishes through your life, because you trust Him to fulfill His promises. So I end with you, encouraging you with a passage out of Revelation. Revelation chapter 3. God speaks to this very thing. Revelation chapter 3, beginning with verse 8. He says, I know your works, and behold, I have set before you an open door, which no one is able to shut. I know that you have a little power, and yet you have kept my word, and have not denied my name. Behold, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan, who say that they are Jews and are not but lie. Behold, I will make them come and bow down before your feet, and they will learn that I have loved you. Because you have kept my word about patient endurance, I will keep you from the hour of trial that is coming on the whole world to try those who dwell on the earth. I am coming soon. Hold fast to what you have so that no one may seize your crown. The one who conquers, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God. Never shall he go out of it. And I will write on him the name of my God, the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem which comes down from my God out of heaven, and my own new name. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. And so this is the promise. This is the reality of what makes a good name. And this is God's promise that He has given to you. If you will trust His promises, if you will be faithful to follow and act upon those promises, no matter how impossible the situation is, if we will fix our perspective on the fact that it's not our ability to overcome, but God's, then we will arrive at the end of this life with a name worth remembering, because written upon us is His name. So Ethan, would you come forward? I want to recognize and challenge you this morning. Because this is the word of encouragement that I'm giving to you. The challenge that I'm going to give to you. As you're going forth and you're going out into life from here, we do want to congratulate you on what you have already accomplished. It's a big step of life, and you have done well in that. We also want to encourage you, challenge you, that as you go forth, that you would trust God, that you would walk according to His promises, and that you would hold on to those. And as you do that, it will be our joy and privilege to watch and see what God accomplishes in and through you. So continue to walk with God daily. Keep Him close. Remember His promises. Trust His greatness, not your own. And do all that you do for the glory of Christ. So with that, I have a gift for you. I have a cactus, not because your personality is so prickly, but I have a cactus to remind you, much as the story I gave you today illustrates how God takes and He fulfills His promises, and He brings beauty and goodness and success out of the dryness and the darkness of desert lands and circumstances of difficulty. So this is your reminder of that. And to help you with that also, I've got you a Bible that is waterproof, so you can take it out with your fishing and such that I know you like to do. But as a reminder and a means for you to continue walking in those promises. Because that, and not anything that I can give you or anybody else can give you, is what will lead you successfully through life. Closing, I'm just going to pray over Ethan and invite you to pray over him with me. Let's commission and send him out into his life with God's promises. God, I just come before you this morning, and I thank you for Ethan. I thank you for the part of this church and our lives that he has been, the opportunity that we've had to watch him grow, to invest in him, and to see him develop into this fine young man that he is. God, I just pray that as he steps out into a new stage of life, that is exciting and terrifying all the same, that you would go with him every step of the way, that you would give him strength, give him wisdom, protect him from the attacks of the enemy, and that you would use him to truly accomplish great things, whether this world would recognize them or not. But great things because they fulfill your plans for him, they lead your kingdom into its successful fulfillment, and because they honor you, because you alone are worthy of honor. So God, I pray that you would build out of this man a great name that honors your name. And we place him into your hands, into your care, because we know you are faithful with your promises. In Jesus' name, amen.